Good morning, welcome back to everybody, and it's our great pleasure to welcome Troy Hunt to the rooms. Good morning, Troy.
G'day, guys. Good evening.
Good evening. It looks quite dark where you are.
Yeah,
but that's probably
I got new
effects.
wallpaper. I was literally just talking about this. This is my new wallpaper. It's on the wall there, and I've got to get rid of all the light stuff. But yeah, it's going to be really cool.
Fantastic. So, there's no format particularly to this chat.
thank God.
Troy's not got a presentation to deliver. He does enough of that, quite frankly.
Yeah.
So what we thought we'd do is we go back quite a long time, Troy. In fact, you and I go back even longer. And I know, John, you've known Troy for a long time as well. But we thought it'd be really cool fun to just have a chat because we've done a lot of work with Troy over the last few years.
Definitely. He's seen us grow up.
He has seen us grow up from
Let's not
afar.
get carried away.
Yeah.
But we last met up in real life at B-Sides London in 2019, and you came along and joined us for a presentation that we gave down there, and that feels like a fucking long time ago now, right?
Yeah, so, I mean,
In everyone's lives.
not much has happened since. Funnily enough, like I was there for InfoSec EU, and I got an invite today to go back to InfoSec EU, and I'm like, do you know we're not even allowed to leave the country? It's like I have no chance of going here. Well, that's how different it is now.
Yeah, at least you've got such a big country you are allowed to travel inside.
It has multiple time zones.
It has multiple time, and it has time and a half time zones.
Yeah, we
That's
do.
right.
Does it count? If,
And
like,
you know,
half of
we've been
the
so many
fauna was to
awesome
kill you?
places as a result of not being able to go anywhere else. So like we would have normally been, I don't know, like another country somewhere. And now we've been like in the middle of the desert and then like chasing crocodile. Okay, being chased by crocodiles, you know, like in really interesting places. And we have actually just seen all this super cool stuff that in all my life in Australia I've never seen. So yeah, thank you, COVID. All right.
And it's amazing. Even in a country as tiny as the UK, we have a similar concept where everything is actually on your own doorstep. In Australia, in terms, the doorstep is big. But
Yeah.
there are places within the country that you just never got to.
Well,
right?
I mean, I had a year in the UK. I saw everything then, but you know, you need a lot more time here to actually see much.
You do. So we did B-Sides London. We had a really good time. You won the Golden Cowbell Award, which I'm hoping that you still have that cowbell kicking
Like
around
this
somewhere.
is not a prop, right? This is not staged.
All right. This is not staged.
It's still there. Yeah, it's still there.
So for people that are not aware of this or don't remember it, we ran a kind of mocked-up awards ceremony at the very end of our talk at B-Sides London, and it was basically a piss take of all of the. And I'll get to the
Still got
point.
stickers.
And you put those on, Sean. You applied those stickers. It was a bit of a piss take ceremony, and it was predominantly about all of the idiots in InfoSec. But we did have some honest awards at the end.
Well, the fact that we weren't nominated and also the judges for our own award, I think is really one of the points to make. Our awards were actually, and we didn't actually charge anyone for winning either. You know, so I think there's something to be said for beer farmer integrity when it comes to awards shows.
I think I would have asked for a refund if I had paid, and all I got was the cowbell.
But it was for the exposure, Troy.
You know how much I can feed my kids on exposure.
But we did that and wound forward a few months, and then we did the first BeerCon,
Yeah,
and you were a part of that.
yeah.
And so the story behind that, which it took us about 3 hours to discuss last night, but we haven't got 3 hours today, was it was my original idea. Was we'd had a really good 2019. We'd done all the UK conferences, and then I said to the guys, "Look, why don't we have like an hour podcast?"
Yeah.
What we'll do is we'll recap on the year and talk about the high points. And I said, I can probably get Troy to come along and be a part of that. And we'll just have an hour, and it'll be brilliant. And then I think Ian was a little offended.
I was offended. I was deeply offended.
He was offended by how good the idea was.
Yeah, I think.
And then you went off and Rolodexed the shit out of the internet. Went, right, well, I'll get Dave Kennedy, I'll get MZ Bart, I'll get Dave Lewis, I'll get Jake Humphries, you name it. And we ended up with a 26.5-hour live
thing that we did,
which you were very much a part of. And so we've always enjoyed working with you. And I'm going to get to the point now. So,
I was hoping.
Yeah, I know. Sometimes it takes me a while. That's what happens when you become a manager. Talk us through some of the highlights and even some lowlights. It's entirely up to you. 2 years now. It's been a long time. So what's been going on in Troyland?
How long did we leave for this? Let's just check. Actually, I just remembered when you were talking about the one 2 years ago. Remember I was on a boat and I was like we're on this catamaran and we're just like out in the middle of the harbour sailing around in the beautiful Aussie sun, which was nice. Well, I've spent a lot more time in the beautiful Aussie sun because I have not been able to go anywhere since February last year. So I think a lot of people overseas don't quite get this, but like we are like a massive island in the middle of nowhere that already had like really strict quarantine rules. So if anyone's ever flown into Australia before, you'll see all these signs. It's like, don't bring in a banana, we'll send you to jail kind of thing. Like it's really, really strict. So when COVID hit, it's like, you're like, we're used to keeping bugs and shit out. So, that's the start. So everything just got super, super locked down. And I came back in early Feb last year. And I was like, we'll come back for a while, then we'll be able to see, whatever. No, I haven't been able to go anywhere since. So in 2019, I traveled 243 days. And in 2020, at least after getting back to Australia, 0 days overseas. 2021, where were we at? Yeah, 2021. 0 days overseas as well. So I think the closest we can hope for to go overseas at all is going to be the second half of next year, which we hope is going to be good, because actually that's one of the things I haven't got engaged. So one of the things we want to actually do is after our Aussie wedding in September next year, go to Norway and do something equivalent there.
Congratulations.
Something good happened.
Yeah, from all of us.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Many good things happen. So, in fact, this has been fun because for Charlotte, like Australia, she's been here plenty of times before, but hasn't seen like, crocodiles and stuff like that. So I'll go see crocodiles. So we've gone like multiple trips.
Not a native species to the UK.
No, it's
or Norway.
Norway. It's like, what do you got over there that's dangerous? She's like, I don't know, like moose. So that sounds really scary. So, look at this little beauty. This is totally different.
In Australia, everything's dangerous.
And also in Australia, the smaller they are, the more dangerous they are.
Yeah, exactly.
I found a mosquito on our wall yesterday. It looked like it could have carried away one of my children. Like it was just ridiculous. It's huge. So no, we've just been, I know this has got nothing to do with InfoSec, but we've just been seeing like heaps and heaps of Australia. And it's actually been super cool because we've gone all of these places we couldn't have gone before. And now we're sort of looking at, particularly for January, and it's like, where do we want to go? So I can kind of go anywhere in Australia and that's it. But yeah, it's just super awesome places here. So we've been doing a lot of that. And then, of course, it's like for everyone, right? Like just about everything has gone online. So it's actually been really good for me in terms of events because I've been to probably more events in 2021 than what I would have ever been to before, because going to an event is I go here, I'm at the BeerCon event, and then it's like, I'll shut that down and then I'll follow another Zoom link and now at another event. So it's actually been really good for that. But I just haven't, I was going to say I haven't had social interaction, but it's not quite true, because what we've done is instead of going like around the world and seeing places, we've actually realized that we have nice neighbors. So we've got all of these nice friends now that are really close to us. So literally one of my neighbors calling me now because he's trying to buy a boat. So we just went like looking at boats today, and he lives over the canal, and then we'll go wakeboarding or something one day. And it's like, this is what life has become. And it's actually become a really sort of fulfilling alternative to what it was before.
Because it is so much fun to stand in line at immigration at Heathrow during the summer where somebody's trying to enter the country with an email that they printed. Because, hey, Troy, so are you up for an InfoSec question?
Yeah, do it. Go on. Why not?
Okay. So from your perspective and all of the conferences that you've attended and all of that kind of thing, do you believe that the COVID pandemic has led to, a crazy amount of, cyber crime, and that we need a new 5th generation AI-driven machine learning post-quantum solution?
Dark blockchain. I think we're going to solve it with the metaverse, is my theory. It's like it's going to fix everything.
Oh, yeah.
We went there.
He went there.
Too soon. I think it's interesting that things haven't just completely gone to shit when I think a lot of speculation would have been that. Now, having said that, like I had a chat with one of the companies I do a bit of work with this morning, and they work in a ransomware space, and they were sort of saying, look, it's just gone so massive since COVID that their space, not just because ransomware is like ticked up and now you got like literally Biden talking about ransomware, but they were doing a lot of products that work with things like remote VPN solutions, and they sort of said, look, we've had big customers call up and go, hey, we need to like 10x or 100x our remote VPN workforce, like just about overnight. Can you please help us? So I think there's been a lot of opportunity for organizations like that, but I don't think we've seen like the mass carnage, which some people kind of predicted, in the same way that we haven't seen like the mass financial ruin that some people predicted. Like there's been stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong, like Zoom bombing was fun, right? Like we all enjoyed watching a bunch of that. But I don't think
we were victims of that ourselves.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, that's entertaining. But I just don't feel that it's been like the mass hysteria that some people thought it might be.
Do you think that could also be, and this is probably getting a bit of the tinfoil hat on, maybe, organizations that have been a bit reluctant to have people working from home and want to have people in the office instead?
Well, it's kind of funny, isn't it? Like I remember my very long years at Pfizer and how much time we spent trying to say, hey, I can actually work well from home. And I just remember the boss I had for most of the time there, he'd be like, you need to be visible. People need to know that you are there actually in the office, because then they know that you're working. So, well, what if I'm in the office and not working? I'm sure we all did a lot of that, right, at one time or another. Yeah. And I think what's really interesting now is that organizations like that, it's like, okay, you don't have a choice. So either you get people to work from home or they just don't work at all. And then you can figure out how to run your business with no workers. So hands were sort of forced. It'll be really interesting to see. I don't think that the term like back to normal is the right term, but it will be really interesting to see once we're back to a more stable state, how different it is. When there is the option to be able to return to work, everyone's had to get work from home, like how much more will be remote? And I think there's kind of two sides to that, right? There'll be a bunch of organizations that are like, okay, we demonstrated this and it worked, or it worked well enough that maybe instead of like 5 days a week in the office, 2 days, I don't know, something like that. But then I also wonder on the individual side, there'll be a bunch of people who are like, look, there's enough organizations that have now put in place the mechanisms to make this work and have proven that it can work, that I've actually got some choices. My choices mean maybe I want to go and spend some time with someone who doesn't want me sitting in traffic, an hour or two a day.
Yeah, and there's another advantage as well. If you have the option to work full time at home, yeah, the sky is the limit now. Versus in Belgium, a lot of companies again ask people to come to the office. So it's really strange. What did we learn? Yeah, maybe they learned it the hard way when the good employees go to other companies. I don't know, but
yeah. But sorry, Troy. It's absolutely true. In my own case, so during COVID, I had my partner and I had another kid. So we've now got an 8-month-old son.
Do something.
Yeah, exactly. Kick the tires and light the fires, buddy. But yeah, we had another kid, and working from home, that life, it became an adaptation of what it ever used to look like. So you started to build your home life around the fact that you worked at home, and now the option exists to go back into the office. You're looking at it and thinking, well, actually, life's changed. It's changed profoundly from what it used to look like 18 months, 2 years ago. And working from home is now actually better. And then you think, well, hang on a minute, I'm paid to do a job. But I feel like I've become more effective in my role by working from home. And my senior team at Zen, it's similar. And we're actually our output, it seems to weirdly have increased over that period of time. So the home life is now, work is part of the home life, but with that separation. So that's just my own personal experience.
I think John's point about just sort of opening up other opportunities in other places, I find this really fascinating. It's almost like a great leveler, right? It's like imagine if it doesn't matter where you are, and you can do anything. I mean, certainly for me, like I was saying before, I've been able to do a lot more events, but because there's so much more demand, like I've literally been able to put my fees up a lot for events. And the way I can try and control fees, or try and control how busy I am, is I just keep raising the price until more people say no. And what happened? They didn't say no. It just kept going and going. Yeah. And it's, this is a really interesting thing. And I think we all sort of get to benefit from this, because you get to kind of shop yourself around the world to some extent, where it's like, well, so long as you don't have to go into the office, you could be working from anywhere, for anyone. And I think we're sort of overcoming things like time zones and this sort of thing as well, and recognizing that people work different hours, even if you're in the same time zone. So I struggle to find downsides for people in our industry. Having said that, I think there's people in a lot of other industries, like if you're in hospitality here, it's just been an absolute nightmare. And that sucks. It's like, you can't Zoom in for a pizza, right? Like you have to come into the restaurant, or else you just don't get to make money.
It's interesting because there's a little thing that popped up on the chat, and thank you very much for participating in part of the conversation about, so then it's boat buying time, right? And this is interesting to me, because I look at it as it's become an ungovernable and untaxable situation. And it's sort of like the inane situation where we have, various nation states that are trying to manage the internet, right, and hold people accountable for their conduct. But again, if you work remotely for an American company but you're based in Spain, where do you pay taxes? How does the government collect its money? How do you get to vote? Like, there's all of these things about being like, being able to remote work and being able to be anywhere in the world. But the realities is that the government is struggling with it. And a great example is the research and development tax credit that you get for a UK business. But the reality is your developers or anybody else that's eligible may not even be in the UK. So you have this outflow of government sponsorship money to people that aren't actually participating in the UK economy in a direct way. And so, what we're seeing is this breakdown, I think, in a lot of ways, of saying, like, listen, no, I want to work from Spain, from Norway, from wherever, and do my thing. But at the same time, it's like, how do I get, unemployment benefits, if I'm suddenly punted out there? So I think it's a really interesting thing. From the Australian perspective, and you do a lot of travel, are you finding that the whole issue around the internet and regulation and governance and privacy is like the next hot button topic, or do you think it's sort of like overblown and alarmist?
I think it depends on your perspective. I guess what gets me with the whole thing is that the fact that we have an Australian government, well, okay, the Australian government gets me anyway, but the fact that it's like we have an Australian government here passing things like privacy laws on everything from what's sensitive personal data to how do you disclose, or what's your mandatory disclosure responsibilities. And then you guys, who for the most part are like me, but just with less sun, right? Like you have different laws that you actually get a lot more protection from than what I do. And then the folks in China get something different. And then you're like, well, we're all on the same internet, and we're all in the same data breaches, and we're all ultimately the same sort of humans. Why is it so bizarrely different? It's, on a slightly more serious note, like when we see a data breach in a part of the world, doesn't matter where it is, and you guys get certain levels of protection because of the country that you live in, and I don't, because of the country that I live in, like, this is just, it's just ridiculous. But this is also like the sort of, I guess, the balkanization of the world, right? Like, everybody has these different sort of little enclaves of different laws and different policies. So I think that's a really odd thing. I'd love to get some consistency, because I think it'll make a lot easier on companies as well. I mean, look at the way it is at the moment. The number of times I share a link on Twitter, and it will be a link to some like local American newspaper, and then people in Europe will go, I can't read it. They've blocked us because we're Europeans. Yeah. And then they get really obnoxious and they go, well, I'm glad, because if they don't want to adhere to GDPR, then I don't want them to see my IP address, or maybe set a cookie or something. So, I thought it was actually a good story. I just wanted to share it. Leave me alone. That's all. I just find that weird, right? Where it's like we all get together in the same room, we have some beers, and we're all the same sort of people, and then we go home, we use the same services, and we somehow have like totally different laws governing us.
The thing is, though, do you actually think it's going to be unified at some point soon within our lifetime? I genuinely struggle to see that happening within the next 10 or 15 years.
Well, hang on. How long are you planning to live? You got 10 or 15 years left.
Oh, yeah.
What are you doing, man?
Well overdue in the 20s.
He's optimistic.
Well overdue in that.
Yeah, that pandemic
I
is really
don't
going
see
to
it
bite.
in 10, 15 years.
I think you're right insofar as I don't expect to see unification from a government perspective. I honestly just don't know the answer to it, and it's just been really interesting that the more time I've spent with governments, and I just remember one time in particular with like EU regulators trying to have a discussion around data breaches, and I found the right people and I went through the right channels and we had a very serious meeting. I was sort of like, look, the objectives around personal privacy and informed consent and all this sort of thing, they're really, really good. But hackers don't really give a shit. And then they take all of this data, and the question I'd like to put to you is, once this happens, what is the best thing that we can do with this? Should we do it like, have I been pwned, but maybe in a more open, sort of globally supported fashion, and let people, oh, no, but that wouldn't be informed consent. But it's out there already. So it's almost like it has happened and it doesn't fit your model of what you think the world is. What do we do now? And it's very, very hard when you push lawmakers on that position to get any sort of a straight answer, because it is a hard question to answer.
That's true. On the matter of have I been pwned, Troy, so in 2019 when we last caught up, you told us, but nobody publicly knew about your plan to sell have I been pwned. And we gave you a few ideas, like donate it to the EFF, or I think Ian, you said we'll give you 50 quid for it.
Yeah.
All of which
that offer still stands, Troy.
It does, yeah.
If you need the money, man.
All of which were rejected out of hand. Yeah. But the question is, do you have any regrets not carrying forward with that? You don't. But would you revisit the idea?
I'll tell you that the penny drop moment for me was after I saw you guys, because that would have been June 2019, and then in July, I was in San Francisco with the bankers from KPMG, and we were going to all these tech companies, and it seriously felt like an episode of Silicon Valley. The long lost series now, unfortunately, but it was really, really good fun. And we were like going to these big tech companies, and we go into like these massive companies with the names that you guys know them all, and you go in there and it'd be like, it was like a kid in a candy shop sort of thing. And then people come and go, oh man, I love what you do. Can we get selfies and get stickers and everything? I'm like, well, okay. Yeah, okay. That sounds really cool. And it was very, very exciting, but it was also very, very stressful. It was just like back to back, people coming into the offices at KPMG, or we'd go out to the companies. And then we got through, I think it was about 2.5 weeks flat of that. And Charlotte, my fiance, and I were driving from there to Yosemite, and we drove to Yosemite. And I remember I had to have a call with a big tech company that everybody knows really, really well. I'm not going to say who it is because of what I'm going to say next. But I had a call with the person who would be my boss. And I was just really, really tired. And we're in this beautiful spot in Yosemite overlooking the park. And we'd found this one spot where there was signal. And this guy was nice enough, but he was like, so Troy, what does your perfect day in the office look like? And he didn't know it, but he was on speakerphone, and Charlotte was sitting in the seat next to me as we were in this car park, and she's just looked at me. And which side was on? I was driving, so she looked over that way. And in my brain, I'm going, I get up and I get on my jet ski and I do whatever the fuck I want. Why am I doing this? And it was just like an absolute penny drop moment, and that was August. But we sort of still went through with the whole process, and it just labored on and on and on and on. And I think as there is a passage of more time, I'll be able to talk more about what actually happened and which company it was that we were going to sell to, and then why they pulled the pin on it. But mate, once it was over, I was just like, I'm so glad that's over, because I was just starting to have these, I don't know, like this feeling of dread of no longer having the independent lifestyle that I have. And then I sort of go back and go, why was I doing this in the first place, and what were the factors that were driving that? And I think that's something that there's a good story there I'm going to tell probably one day. But yeah, when I got to the end of it, which was really Feb last year, I was super happy. And now I'm just a lot more relaxed about it. And I guess a lot more things in my life are a lot more relaxed, but I can't load enough data breaches. I got a big backlog, but I just get up each day and I'm surrounded by so much IoT shit and stuff on the desk because I felt like I wanted to make some new light fittings or something. Oh, I'll do some have I been playing breaches later on. It'll be fine. And I just don't worry about it as much. Look, we'll see over time, right? Because I think it's a valuable service, but the open sourcing of it for the password bit is good. That's growing massively. We're getting very, very close to launching the FBI password ingestion process, which is super, super cool. I still think it's really awesome the FBI is giving us passwords. So, you know.
Who would have
Well,
thought?
I mean, the Chinese have them, the Russians have them, so why not have I been pwned,
Yeah,
right?
Why not?
the
Why
FBI
not? It's
sharing
out
them,
there.
that's- that's a precedent,
I just
isn't
think that there's a lot of really good stuff that can be done yet. That's just in everyone's best interest.
it? Yeah, fair enough. Listen, we're going to wrap, and we managed to fill a half hour, but I've got one final question for you before we let you finish your glass of wine. So we've talked about the themes, and when we do our talks, we reflect on a lot of the things that you talk about. You know, we don't steal your material, I might point out, but well, not all of it. But the question is, what's the big theme that we need to be thinking about? So in the past, we've talked about breaches, we've talked about HTTPS, all the common sense things that people seem to not find common. What should we all be thinking about now, or is it just more of the same?
I think it's more of a saying to a degree, but the aspect that I just find myself being really interested in more recently is like the human side of security. So how do people interact with security paradigms? Passwords is a great example. I don't really have a problem with passwords as a concept. They've got lots of issues, but what makes them difficult? Well, arbitrary complexity criteria and mandated rotation and things like this, because that really doesn't consider how humans use systems. 2FA is another great example. 2FA is a technically brilliant implementation. Even via SMS, it's still a lot better than 1FA. I can't believe so many people like using SMS for 2FA is even worse than having only password. It's like the number 2 is bigger than the number 1, right? So that means it's better. Like when you add something, it's better. And then we can just like sit around and argue about how much better it is. But they're all better to some degree. But, oh, man, try setting it up for my mum and dad. It's like, good luck with that because it's terrible. And then I was commenting actually only about an hour and a half ago on Zoom, my weekly video about a coin market cap that obviously had an enumeration vector somewhere. And they had massively overly aggressive captures. So the captures where you got to like pick all the buses and there's like a 3x3 square.
Yeah.
And then you pick a bus and then the square slowly fades out and you have to wait to see if another bus comes back, or maybe it's just a push bike instead, in which case you don't click on it. And then they do that and you're like, oh, thank God I've done that. And they're like, click on all the traffic lights. Oh shit, not again. And I just think it's really interesting about how we try and solve security problems and the impact on humans. And I think this is a really, really big opportunity about how do we make it human accessible, because it only works when humans use it.
Yeah, I agree, completely agree. Yeah. And on that note, thank you very much, Troy. It's great to
It was
catch
great
up.
to see you.
Hopefully we'll get a beer sometime before we're all dead. That'd be great.
It's only 10 years' time.
Yeah. Well, if you live in Glasgow, it is, yeah.
About 3 for me. So hurry
Come
up.
and do
So-
BeerCon3 in Australia. Why don't we do that?
That's an invite.
In Darwin.
Darwin. No, I think, I'd probably rather do it down Queensland.
When Darwin
That'd be
gets
better.
internet, we can consider that. But,
Worst BeerCon ever.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, mate. Enjoy the rest of your Friday and have a great weekend. And we really appreciate you catching up with us. So,
All right.
cheers, mate.
Cheers, everyone. See you guys.
Bye-bye.
All the best.
Cheers, Troy.
Bye.
Bye-bye.